What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to the Credit Plug channel. So for today's video, we have a very special guest. We got the credit hero, Daraine Delevante, who's actually going to be sharing some consumer law secrets, right? So make sure you stay tuned, get out a notepad, take some notes, because we're going to be dropping, or he's going to be dropping some exclusive information. If you're someone who might have some type of derogatory items, collections, repos, late payments, he's going to break down how you could actually use consumer laws to actually get some of those items off of your credit report. Welcome to the channel.
Man, thank you very much, bro. It's been great. The new year has started out great. We're 12 days in and we're already doing great things. So for me, it's just been an amazing experience. Just moved to the A, so I'm in Atlanta now. So I'm excited, man. It's a great year. And I'm here to spread the word and spread the message because too long we've been suffering from bad credit. And there comes a time where you can't say you don't know anymore. The information is too much. It is abundantly and it's out there. It is not a secret anymore. So for people that's saying, oh, I don't know, you're just not looking. So one of the strategies for this year is to bring more awareness to people. And this is why we're here, so that they can understand and comprehend that late payments are illegal. It shouldn't even be on your credit. What bankruptcy are people talking about when they say about public record? Is it really public record or is it identity theft? The charge-off that's been reported on people's credit, is it really a debt, or did the IRS say a charge-off or a canceled debt is gross or ordinary income? So it's things like that, bringing the awareness and comprehending the definitions, because once we comprehend the definitions, we now see the real picture of what's going on. It's the lack of definitions. As the good book said, my people suffer because of lack of information or lack of knowledge. And this is true. And when people don't know that they are the ones that control what gets reported, oftentimes the people at power that knows that the consumers don't know these things, they spin the role, and we are now led to believe that they can report anything on our credit. And that is so far from the truth, brother.
In terms of, consumer law, right? Because I know sometimes when people see some of the legal jargon or terminology, it might be a little bit intimidating and even sometimes like hard to interpret. So in terms of consumer laws as it relates to, credit, what are some of the sources or where would someone begin in terms of getting the information, like where these laws are written down? How would someone go about just obtaining that information to kind of digest themselves? What would be the first starting point?
All right, very good question. So we have to think of them as separate laws, but they all work together, right? If it's anything to do with your credit, we want to talk about the Fair Credit Reporting Act, right? The FCRA. If it's anything regarding a debt collector or debt collection, we know that it's the FDCPA, which is the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. If we're talking about loans now, we're talking about Truth in Lending, Equal Credit Opportunity Act. So once we break it apart and we know, is this debt collection related? Is this credit related? Is this a loan or mortgage or any? What is my problem? What is related to my problem? Once I know what is related to my problem, I'll know which law to go to. And in this case, we're discussing the consumer report, or what people call the credit report. So we know that we're going to be in the FCRA.
Got it. Okay. So the Fair Credit Reporting Act, I know, we've talked about that, not in too much detail. So in terms of the Fair Credit Reporting Act, now this is something that anyone is able to get a copy of publicly. If someone, let's say, has some derogatory items on their credit report, and maybe they don't know how to interpret some of these different laws, right? And a couple examples I'll give you, let's say late payments. How would someone utilize the FCRA to, rectify, let's say late payments, or if there's any sort of, violation of those consumer laws, would they need to retain some type of counsel, or is this something that you think each and every one of us should be able to interpret these laws and regulations and then be able to act accordingly? So like once you actually, see where the laws are, what's the next step after that? What type of, action items would someone actually have to take after they kind of figure out, okay, I'm looking at the FCRA, these particular statutes or laws pertain to, my late payments. What's the next step after that?
All right, very good question. So, man, I didn't want to give this part out just yet, but what I'm going to do is I've made a special package for your audience. And in there, there's 3 ebooks and a 14-day course. Now, the 14-day course by itself is $997, and the ebooks together are like $300. But for your audience, for $47, I'll drop that offer at the end. So they'll be able to use the information in the course along with what I'm going to show them now to get themselves ahead. So I'm only dropping it for only $47. So whoever is watching this right now, y'all want to stay to the end, because if you don't stay to the end, you're gonna miss it. So let's talk about late payment. So I'm going to share my screen right now, and I'm going to show you just how anybody can do this from the comfort of their home. And if they don't, this is why I have a university that I teach people how to do this. So what I'm going to do right now, all right, let me know now. You should be seeing Google.
Yep.
All right, we're in business. Can you see me typing?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right, cool. So guys, I'm going to share my screen real quick. And right now we're going to go to the FCRA, right? So 15 USC 1681. And this is something that anyone can do from the comfort of their home. So when you type in 15 USC 1681, it's going to bring you to the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Now, this law is the law that governs everything that gets reported on your credit. So it talks about how the consumer reporting agencies, how they are following certain guidelines to make sure that information is accurate. And then the furnishers of information to your credit, this also guides them and tells them what to do. 9 times out of 10, we know that don't happen. And this is why you got to be proactive about your own credit. You cannot sit and wait for somebody to save you. And when I say somebody, thinking that Experian, TransUnion, or Equifax is going to save you, I'm telling you, they're not. All right, cool. Like, they're not coming to save you, guys. They're not coming to save you. You got to learn this stuff, and you got to protect yourself. So the first thing I want to show you, brother man, is congressional findings. And as you can see, the first thing Congress speaks about in the entire FCRA itself is accuracy and fairness of credit reporting. It got to be accurate to the consumer, and it has to be fair, because when it is so, do y'all know what's going on with Wells Fargo right now? Does anyone know?
I know there's a lot of stuff going on right now. Yeah, so I know there was like the lawsuit with them, like opening up all of these accounts without the consent of the users. They've had discrimination lawsuits, all types of stuff. So yeah, I'm
going to show you how directly what Congress is speaking about goes back to Wells Fargo, and I'll just use that as an example. So guys, listen to this real quick. The banking system is dependent upon fair and accurate credit reporting. Inaccurate credit reports directly impair the efficiency of the banking system, and unfair credit reporting methods undermine the public confidence, which is essential to the continued functioning of the banking system. Now, some of you guys might not know, but there was a $3.7 billion lawsuit, right? $3.7 billion lawsuit, Wells Fargo. So the CFPB, right? The CFPB ordered Wells Fargo to pay $3.7 billion. This is from the CFPB's website. So nothing that I'm saying here I'm making up. $3.7 million for what? The company repeatedly misapplied loan payments, meaning that what that means is when you guys made your home payments, your mortgage payments and your auto loan payments, they purposely miss those payments so you can have late payments so they can charge you guys higher interest rates.
Wow.
Right? And wrongfully foreclosed. So they were wrongfully kicking people out of their homes. And they were illegally repossessing vehicle. When I tell you guys that these banks and these firms does not have your intention at heart, they don't. No matter what that customer says, oh, we have your best intention at heart. That is a lie. It is a lie, because if that wasn't the case, this is the biggest lawsuit today.
Wow.
Right? As you guys
that's
see,
recent too, December 20th, 2022. That wasn't even a month ago. This
is very recent. I'm not talking about something like months ago. This is very recent. So they illegally put people out of their home and foreclose on them. They illegally repossess vehicle. They intentionally and illegally applied mispayments to people's payments, right? And incorrect fees, because now remember, late payment come with what? Fees, right? You're $25 for being late. You're $35. Imagine, multiply that by 100 million consumers.
It's a lot of money, billions of dollars.
And this is what people are not thinking about. And this affected over 16 million consumers. So guys, I want you to think 16 million multiplied by just a $35 late payment.
What's the math? That's a couple hundred million.
Yes. We're not talking about now the interest rates and stuff that the consumers are paying now because of quote unquote, oh, it's in your contract. And if you miss the payment, because you're a credit expert and you got a lot of credit cards, and in their terms and condition, it says that if you miss a payment, they have the right now to increase that interest rate.
Right. There's a certain APR, like once you miss a payment, it'll bump it up. So then accounts where they shouldn't have a late payment, but they did. So now they're paying even higher APR. So to your point, not only is it the fees, but it's the additional APR. And so you multiply that by the balances on all those accounts. That's additional, millions and millions of dollars.
So now, because of all of that, Wells Fargo, right? They are backing out of the mortgage game. Look at this.
Wow. That's from 1 day ago.
Yeah. Guys, so when I tell you guys that these things are here and you guys got to be aware, these are for your own protection. And this is why I am a big advocate of consumer law, right? So y'all can see it, right? Wells Fargo is backing out of the mortgage market. What does this mean for home buyers? It means some of you won't be scammed anymore. So I just wanted to touch on that point and show you guys that these things are real.
Absolutely.
And people, go ahead, bro.
I was going to say, I think sometimes we might assume because it's a big institution, a well-known institution, that, they're going to do everything correctly, properly, ethically, and legally. But to your point, Wells Fargo, I believe they're the third or fourth largest bank in the country. And, they have been riddled with these sorts of, allegations and lawsuits over the past couple of decades. So it's nothing new. Yeah. But the thing about it is that when you're a consumer, it might feel like intimidating going up against these large institutions. And then you add the fact that, right now, you have the FCRA pulled up, for the everyday person who might not have may not be able to digest and absorb and be able to synthesize, these legal, jargon. It might seem a little bit intimidating. Like, what do I do if I feel like, okay, I've been wronged or something's not right? Like, what's the starting point? And I think it's daunting for a lot of people, but that's why we have you on here to kind of explain, how to go about utilizing these consumer laws for your own protection. Because like you said, I think the most common reason for, certain derogatory remarks on people's credit is inaccurate information. And the credit reporting agencies, sometimes they're not just going to automatically fix it, without you initiating something, right? So oftentimes you have to actually initiate something. For example, like another example is like when the statute of limitations, when how long an account's supposed to report. Even myself, I've had in the past where it was past that time, but it's still reporting on my credit. So if I don't initiate, if I don't speak up, if I don't advocate for myself, then, it may not get done. You know what I mean? So
yeah, you're right on the money. You are right on the money with everything that you just said. All right. A lot of people don't know that effective this year, right? Medical collections, effective 2023, medical collections, $500 or less should not be reported on your credit at all. Should not, right?
yep.
So, and this is information that a lot of people need to know. Let me know if you're still seeing the screen. Are you still seeing it?
Yep.
All right. So let me show y'all why I said late payments are illegal. So credit plug, I'm going to prove five things to you, right? And if I'm not able to prove these 5 things, I need you to send me a request on Zelle for $1,000. Is that a fair game?
Sure.
All right. So the first thing I'm going to prove is that credit bureaus don't exist, right? So you can write them down and hold me accountable. And everybody watching this, I want you guys to hold me accountable. So I'm going to prove that credit bureaus don't exist. I'm going to prove that a FICO or a Vantage score is not a part of your consumer report, right? I'm going to prove that late payments and utilizations are illegal and shouldn't be reported on your consumer report. And then as a bonus, I'm going to throw in, have you ever heard people saying don't pay collections, don't pay collections?
Yep.
So I'm going to bring you to the law where that comes from. A lot of people say it, but they don't know where it comes from. And when they say don't pay collections, they don't have the evidence or the reference to support that statement. I'll show that as well. So if I can't prove those things, you can request me $1,000 on Zelle. I will be happy to send it to you. Deal?
All right, let's go.
All right. So the first thing, guys, we're going to go to is the definition, rules, and construct. Why is that important? We need to comprehend what words mean. When we know what their words mean, we now know what we need to do. So this word consumer report, we're going to come back to it in a minute. But credit plug, if someone say exclusion, if we're going to a party or an event and we said that Jeremy, right, a mutual friend of ours, is excluded from the event, what does that mean to you?
That basically means, not a part of, or,
right?
not privy to.
Okay, good. So I want y'all to follow me with this. Exclusions. Remember, this is in the FCRA. So if Congress says these are exclusions from the FCRA, doesn't that mean that whatever Congress is going to say doesn't apply to your credit?
Right.
So except as provided in paragraph 3, the term consumer report does not include. Now, if Congress says your consumer report does not include something, just to play devil's advocate, what do you think they mean if they say your consumer report does not include?
These things shouldn't be in your consumer report. I mean, and Congress makes the laws, so.
My God. All right, so let's find out what the consumer report means. In general, the term consumer report means any written, oral, or other communication of any information by a consumer reporting agency bearing on the consumer's credit worthiness, credit standing, credit capacity, credit character, general reputation, personal characteristics, or mode of living, which is used or expected to be used or collected in whole or in part for the purpose of serving as a factor establishing the consumer's eligibility for a credit or insurance to be used primarily for personal, family, or household purposes, B, employment purposes, or C, any other purpose authorized under 1681B of this title. Now, brother man, I know you're very smart. At any time in the definition, did you see the word FICO or Vantage score?
No, not at all.
All right. At anywhere in the definition, did you see the word credit bureau?
Nope.
All right. Congress said what? Consumer Reporting Agency, right?
Correct.
So you see how they've been lying to us all these years, calling themselves credit bureau to exert authority in an area where they don't have any. When you think bureau, let me know what you think. When the word bureau comes to mind, what do you think?
Bureaucracy, right? You think about, a government entity.
No.
That's kind of what you think of, like an authoritative type of institution, right?
An institution put in place. But what if I tell you guys that they weren't appointed anything? I want you to look at what Congress says. An elaborate mechanism has been developed for investigating and evaluating the credit worthiness, credit standing, credit capacity, character, and general reputation of consumers. Consumer reporting agencies have assumed a vital role in assembling and evaluating consumer credit and other information on consumers. They were not given this role. They assumed a role and they used a name that people know and fear, bureau, government.
Right.
And they leaked this information into the population, and people started believing that they are bureaus. So when something is on their credit, the average person is, like you said before, they're intimidated. They don't want to look at it. Oh, it's coming from a bureau. It must be correct, right? It's coming from these banks. It must be correct. That is not true.
Right. I mean, and these are private, private companies. There was this whole discussion about, and I don't know if there's any traction with it, but I did a video on this maybe like a year ago on, I guess it was a proposal initially from the Biden administration for the CFPB to take over the credit reporting from the big three, and so if that were the case, it would be more like government bureaucracy type. But again, these are private companies, as you mentioned, that kind of assumed the role.
So now that we know credit bureaus don't exist, we know that they're a for-profit corporation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what else Congress has here. So, except as provided in paragraph 3, the term consumer report does not include. So, reports containing information solely as to transactions or experiences between the consumer and the person making the report. Let's see what the word consumer means. The term consumer means an individual. But let's go see what the word person means, right? The term person means any individual, partnership, or what? Corporation. So I want us now to reread this sentence now that we have the definitions. Exclusion, except as provided in paragraph 3. The term consumer report, it means your consumer report does not include reports containing information solely as to transactions. Credit plug, what is your payment history? Isn't that your transactions? So
correct.
If your transactions are excluded, does not include your transactions between the consumer, credit plug, and the person. We know person means corporation, Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, right?
Wow.
In the report, where does the late payment come from on your credit or on your consumer report?
From the corporation, or as it states right there, from the person, right? Because of how it's defined, a person can be, an individual, corporation, private entity, a trust, whatever. So report containing information solely as to transactions or experiences between the consumer, which could be like, you, the person, and a corporation, right? So I see after rereading it actually, in breaking down the definitions, that makes sense. So from my understanding, when you go back to exclusions, except as provided in paragraph 3, the term consumer report does not include. And then when you look at the first one, report containing information solely as transactions between let's say me and Bank of America, right? The person, so the person making the report, right? Between the consumer and the person making the report. So so does that mean like reporting the or reporting that account, right? Interesting.
Good. You're catching on. So now, so we know FICO, right? Fair Isaacs Corporation, and factors of FICO. You see, a payment history is a factor of FICO and it's a factor of Vantage. It is not a factor of your consumer report. People need to separate that your FICO and Vantage are not the same as your consumer report. They are independent, different things. So what's a factor over here on FICO is not a factor over here on your consumer report. Your consumer report does not need a FICO, but your FICO cannot exist without information from your consumer report. You control what is reported on the consumer report. That means the FICO now reflects the information it gives it. So on the consumer report, your transactions are not a part of it. It's a part of FICO, but that's not our problem. FICO means nothing if the consumer report that everything matters. So now we know that there's a difference between what your consumer report is and what your FICO or the FICO algorithm gets. So now we know that on your consumer report itself, there should be no transaction or payment history on there because it is excluded and it falls under the exclusion section where a consumer's transaction between the consumer and the corporation is not a part of the consumer report. This is how I get late payments deleted. So everybody you hear talking about goodwill letters, please stop sending goodwill letters. You're not admitting or begging nobody for nothing. I am telling you, consumer law deletes anything from your credit. And where it spoke about experiences. So you get a $1,000 line of credit, right? Let's say from Capital One. And the amount of credit that you're using at any given time is the experience of you, the consumer, and that institution and that line of credit. There's another name for experiences. Let me see if you can guess what it is. What's that other term that is used when we're talking about the amount of credit that a person is using?
The utilization, right?
Utilization. Remember earlier I told you that I'll prove you that late payment and utilizations does not exist on the consumer report. Your experience with the line of credit with that creditor is also not a part of the consumer report. But guess what? On your FICO, those are the two biggest categories: payment and utilization, which both make up 65%, right?
Right. And I guess just to kind of also clarify, like, your consumer report, I guess you could almost view that as like ingredients or like the inputs that feed into the FICO or the Vantage. I always like to think of it like, okay, your consumer report is like, again, like the ingredients, but then the FICO, the Vantage, that's more like a recipe, right? The scores that they generate could be off if the information that's feeding into it is not accurate. You know what I mean? If bad information is getting into, into that algorithm, that formula, then it's not going to truly reflect, the information from your consumer report. So that's another way to kind of look at it. The FICO, again, FICO and Vantage, these are also private entities, right? It's just that they've been adopted from a lot of financial institutions as like the standard in terms of like how to evaluate, how to create a numeric score, right? But as we know, like the numeric score, it doesn't always tell the full picture,
So imagine now, Credit Plug, being armed with this information, knowing that you control the biggest part of the FICO pie chart, which is 357.5 points. See, when you add up the payment history, which is 35%, and the utilization, that makes 30%, you get 192.5 plus 165, and that should give you 357.5 points. The biggest category, because the credit score run from 300 to 850. That gives us what? 550 points to play around with. Two of the biggest section adds up to 357.5 points. Not knowing consumer law, that's the amount of points it's costing.
The way you sort of broke it down, right? Because in the FCRA, they give the definitions. So, for those who, might not know, okay, how do I interpret this? Just how you kind of broke it down, it gives you like a glossary of, okay, what's a person, what's an individual. Once you get an understanding of what those terms are, then bring it back to, what the actual, definitions or what the rules are, and then try to interpret it that way. It makes much more sense. To your point, like when you're getting late payments removed based off of the FCRA, based off in how we've just interpreted this, late payments and utilization technically, and correct me if I'm wrong, shouldn't be on your consumer report.
My guy. See, I knew, like, it takes a lot of people a long time to figure it. Like, if you're not one of my students, it will take them a minute. So far, bro, you've decoded it one of the fastest. That is exactly the point. And when people are consumers, when everybody that's watching this right now, like, you don't have to join my program. You don't have to. Take the information and go learn it. If you need more help, I am here. But what I'm saying is this, Credit Plug. When you know that you control it, do you know the amount of people that got affected in 2020 and 2021 with the moratoriums and all these deferments and all of these things where late payments are popping up left, right, and center on student loan, mortgages, auto loans, like all of these things, and not knowing that they literally have the power to delete all of those, all of it. There is no law that says anything has to get reported on your credit. The law says a consumer have the right to opt out of having their information reported. Absolutely no law says that. And you'll hear this too. We can't delete that information because by law we are required to report it. What law says that? I bet if you ask any of these companies, and I'm telling you because I'm not telling you something somebody told me. I've called them before. Oh, the law requires us to report accurate information. Where does the law says that my transactions and my experiences are supposed to be reported? Because I can tell you right now what the Fair Credit Reporting Act says. And when you go to pull up Google, I'm sure you got a computer at your desk, 15 USC 1681A, go down to number 2. If you can't read, get your supervisor, because it says specifically under the exclusions that a consumer's transactions or experiences are not included in the consumer report. How are you reporting this item as late on your system when clearly the law says on the consumer report it's not supposed to be there? Don't tell me about factors of FICO. FICO is not a government institution. It is not my consumer report. That has nothing to do with me.
You identified the section of the Fair Credit Reporting Act where these exclusions exist for transactions and experiences on the consumer report. All right, so you have that information, right? And this is pertaining to like late payments. Perhaps your ebooks kind of explain and go into a little bit detail, but like, what would be the next step after this, knowing this information? Because does this boil down to interpretations, between individual, the consumer, and Equifax, Experian, TransUnion? Like, what's sort of the next action step after kind of knowing this information?
They can interpret it however they want to interpret it, but it doesn't change the black and white fact that transactions or experiences are not a part of the consumer report, and it falls under the exclusion section. So I built letters. So all my letters on my website, DaraineDelevante.com. I will give you the link for the website and all the stuff that I'm going to give you, so that your people, they're able to go on there. So I've built late payment letters from this section of the law alone. And I'm telling you, bro, I've gotten none of my students send out, they are forbidden to send out goodwill letters. And if I find out any one of them send out a goodwill letter, they get kicked out the program. We don't beg people for anything, Credit Plug. When you know the truth You don't need to beg people. Oh, I'm sorry I was late. My uncle died. No, bro. We're not doing none of that.
So real quick, can you explain why you shouldn't send out goodwill letters? What disadvantage is there with sending out goodwill letters? Because I mean, obviously we know, like, in, I work with a lot of people as well. Rarely do they work in getting, accounts or debt removed. Why shouldn't people use goodwill letters in 2023?
Because the first thing about goodwill letters, you're admitting that you were late. That's number one.
Right.
Like, ain't nobody admitting that we were late. I'm not telling anybody that they weren't late, and I'm not telling you that you are late. What I'm telling you is this: your transactions, whether it's late or not, is not supposed to be in your consumer report. So we take a different angle. We're not saying this account doesn't belong to us. No, the account is my account, but guess what? This section of the law says I can opt out of having this account reported. And guess what? I am exercising that right. We go straight laws, straight facts. And this is why when people, they'll try to build their letters. Some people have some success. I know all my letters have success. Why? Because of the way they are built. They are not included. My words are not in the letters. It is straight law that is in there. So in the late payment letter, it would read something along this line: it has come to my attention that you are reporting my transactions with your company to the consumer report. You see what I'm saying? So did you hear me say late at any time?
No, that's not like the point you're trying to make, right? Whether it was late or not, right? It's the whole fact of it being reported in the first place.
Yes. So we're not taking that I was late angle. No, we're taking you have reported a transaction on this account on this day between the consumer, Daraine Delevante, and yourself, Wells Fargo Bank. And according to the FCRA, 15 USC 1681A2A1, except as provided in paragraph 3, the term consumer report does not include reports containing information solely as to transactions. And I'm highlighting transaction. My transaction history between Daraine Delevante, and you, Wells Fargo, is excluded from the consumer report. Delete this transaction history from the consumer report, or delete the late payment, or delete the item marked as late from my consumer report.
So, okay, so this kind of applies to payments, right? What about some other sort of derogatory items like repossessions, collections, bankruptcies? Is there a different approach to that, or is there a different section of the FCRA that can accommodate that? And if you can't go into all detail, that's fine. But I was just wondering, would this the part of the FCRA that you just specified, does that pertain to like other types of derogatory information? And is there like separate things that might pertain, I don't know, like bankruptcies or child support, stuff like that?
I got you. So different section of the law speaks on different things, right? For example, let's say someone is suffering from identity theft, right? We go to the identity theft section. There's a section for everything. This tells you what you need to do. Supply these 4 things, write the letter, and send that in to get the items deleted for identity theft. Congress tells you specifically what you need to do. Now, when it comes to collections now, that's where we go over to 15 USC 1692. This is the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, right? So when we're talking about debt collection, we go over here. And remember earlier, I told you that I'll prove to you that a consumer doesn't have to pay a debt collector. This is where it comes from. Because under the communication section of the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, Congress says this: if a consumer notifies a debt collector in writing that the consumer refuses to pay a debt, or that the consumer wishes the debt collector to cease further communication with the consumer, the debt collector shall not communicate further with the consumer with respect to such debt, except to tell them that their efforts are being terminated, to notify the consumer the debt collector may invoke a specified remedy, or to let them know they're taking that specified remedy. So can a consumer refuse to pay a debt collector? Yes. Congress says you must notify them in writing. You must notify them in writing that you refuse to pay this debt, right? To a debt collector. That's it. Congress tells you what to do.
Wow.
But because a lot of people are not reading the laws, they follow stuff that they hear, and the people that they're hearing stuff from, they're not showing them the proof or the source of the information. I am not stingy with information. If I can't give my best for free, I don't know enough. That's what my mentor tells me.
Absolutely. Now, let me ask you a question, because I was always sort of learned that if you're actually in communication with a debt collector, let's say, they've been calling you, mailing you, reaching out to you, is it true that if you start communicating with like a debt collector, that restarts statute of limitations to where they can attempt to collect the debt? Is that true or not?
No, that is a lie. The only way it restarts the statute of limitation is if a payment is made. And
a payment is made. Okay.
Yeah, and with the new FDCPA law, a payment does not reset the statute of limitations anymore. So the new law, I don't know if a lot of people know, but November 31st, 2021, there was a new debt collection law that went in effect. A lot of people don't know this in the industry, but there are new laws. A debt collector can't just put items on your credit anymore. That's called parking. It's illegal for a debt collector to park debt on an alleged debt on a consumer's credit report without the consumer knowing. They have to reach out to the consumer. They have to call or send a mail, and it takes 14 days after delivery, if they don't get a response from the consumer, that they can now put it on there, and they must be able to show proof. They cannot illegally park a debt or an alleged debt on nobody's consumer report without reaching out to the consumer. And now they have a lot of disclosures that must be given to the consumer. It must be in a model form B1. So the model form B1 is a type of document that has a specific structure that debt collectors must send debt collection attempts or letters that look like it. It needs to have their license number. It's a whole different ballgame now.
Wow.
Debt collection. And it's more favorable to the consumer.
Wow. That that's a lot of great information, man. I had no idea about that, because I do recall like what would happen maybe prior to that time, right? Let's say, someone had, an old debt and, it was off their report. Then all of a sudden, 5 years later, just mysteriously pops up on their credit report. So what you're saying now is that, debt collectors can't just start reporting something, an alleged debt, unless they follow certain protocols, as you mentioned, sort of like documenting their outreach and their communication to the debtor.
To the alleged debtor.
To the alleged debtor, right.
All debts are alleged, because, that's the word Congress used there. It's an alleged debt. They got to prove it. And not you, the consumer, need to prove it. They need to prove it, right? And this is where now certain aspect of the law comes in. Like if a debt collector writes you in English and you speak Spanish, I'm gonna request everything in Spanish. And if you can provide me in that language, I don't comprehend what you're sending to me.
Wow.
If I can't comprehend what you're sending to me, you cannot make a successful attempt to collect. You put it in a language that I do not comprehend.
Wow. That's huge, because I know a lot of our subscribers, have stated to me that all of a sudden, like something just pops up on their credit report from years ago. And if the debt collector wasn't following these protocols, that information shouldn't be on their report. And so as part of some of the services that you provide in terms of like the debt collection practices, is there like I guess a sequence of steps you could follow if that's the case? Like if you feel as though something shouldn't be reporting, there weren't these protocols weren't followed, how do you go about getting that off your report?
Good question. So before we talk about suing anybody, we need to make sure that we exhaust the administrative process. And the administrative process is this. If you know something is on there, and this is what I teach. So I teach people how to find these discrepancies, right? How to find these violations, and then they're going to send out the letters. So if you identify something on your credit report or your consumer report that's not supposed to be there, the first thing you need to do is address it. And addressing it simply means that you're disputing it, right? When it comes to debt collectors, we're not asking for validation like a lot of industry people talk about. We're not asking for verification. Why? Because the new law gives us specific things that we can do. A consumer can refuse to pay a debt. You can hit them with a cease and desist. You can hit them with a volunteer non-fit injure. You can hit them with the no parking rule. There's so many things we can do now. Like if it's a debt collection that is $500 or less, that's on the report. All you need to do is get my debt collection letter for medical collections $500 or below. So when you use these things, it's the first step, right? So now they're going to say, okay, guys, we got a live one. This one knows what he's talking about. Let's delete it. I'm telling you, we get debt collections deleted like anything else because they will look it up. And if they see you're a consumer that knows your stuff, they will not mess with you, bro.
Informed consumer, yeah. They don't want no part of it.
Is an informed consumer. Because now if they continue to report it, they know it's a lawsuit coming, especially if the item has been disputed. And then like 15 USC 1692 E8, when an item gets disputed, right? Let's look it up too, because I want people to see that the credit hero ain't just making stuff up. So it's called an E8 violation, right? So when we go to E and then we go to 8, communicating or threatening to communicate to any person credit information which is known or should be known to be false, including the failure to communicate that the disputed item or the disputed debt is disputed. That's a huge violation. So if a consumer disputes a debt, right, and the debt collector does not update it that it is being disputed, that's a violation, and you can get paid for that. If the consumer let them know that the information is false, right, and during that dispute they do not update it too, that is a violation. I'm telling you, man, when you get empowered with this consumer law stuff, like you feel like Thanos with all the Infinity Stones. This is powerful. Like this stuff, like you see how excited I'm getting speaking about it. Like, who gets excited reading laws? I'm kind of the only person that I know. Like, when you learn this stuff, Credit Plug, I'm telling you, bro, your perception on credit is a whole different perception.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've learned a lot just in this short session, in terms of some of the different ways that you could dispute items and such. So this is powerful information. And again, like I said, I think what's usually daunting is kind of how you broke down, like interpreting this, what the steps are in terms of going about that. And I know you offer some products and services that will really help empower the consumer with, challenging, some of these derogatory items, or even if, they've been wronged by some of these different financial institutions or credit reporting agencies, what the steps are in order to, fight those. Because at the end of the day, as much of, we don't like to admit, credit is a big part of just everyday life, right? If you're trying to make a big move, housing, vehicles, employment, a lot of that's based off of what's on your consumer report. So, you really have to protect your consumer report, because that information can have a huge bearing on, you know, your well-being, right? Your ability to navigate out here in society. And so I think we should also be empowered to, you know, be able to dispute these inaccuracies on the consumer report. And I know, like I said, you offer some products and services that empower the consumer to be able to challenge these, right? And kind of breaking it down in layman's terms, right? So that the average person can actually, you know, comprehend and be able to follow, you know, a sequence of steps to be able to, you know, rectify the information on their consumer report. So can you talk a little bit about, you know, the products that you have and just kind of explain, you know, in what scenarios would someone be utilizing, you know, certain tactics, certain techniques? I know you have these kind of outlined on your website. So if you could just kind of walk through that, pull that up.
Yeah,
and
definitely. So when you go to Daraine Delevante, just type that into Google, and
we'll drop links in the description of the video.
Absolutely.
So
it's going to bring up my website, right? So what you're seeing right now for all the credit repair business owners here, I am having a challenge on January 23rd. So if this interview goes up before that, which I would definitely love, for every credit repair business owner on here, you can definitely come in on this challenge, January 23rd to 27th, where I'm going to be breaking down how to scale your credit repair business to make an extra 100 to 200,000 using 4 key principles: lead generation, lead conversion, client ascension, and continuity, and how you use those in your business, and how I'm going to show you guys what I did, how I did 7 figures in 11 months using these strategies.
wow, congratulations. That's amazing. That's amazing. So I mean, that's just a testament of the value that's being delivered. Because again, like the way you broke it down, you know, you don't really see too much of that online. It's, you know, some of these sort of outdated, like you said, goodwill letters and, you know, some of these other templates. But like you were saying, taking the actual, you know, law from the FCRA and some of these other, you know, legal docs to kind of, you know, formulate an approach to, you know, rectifying the consumer report. So yeah, walk us through sort of, you know, some of the products that you have for anyone who's interested in kind of, you know, applying some of this information.
So when you come to DaraineDelevante.com, my university here, this offers my mentorship. So you guys will see this page. Once you guys you guys will get a tour of my university, and you can definitely sign up to join. The big thing now is the store, right? Because in the store, we have the ebooks, we have dispute letters, we have packages. So there's something for everybody. So don't even get me started on child support. We'll be here for another hour about the fraud that child support gets. Child support is the biggest fraud in America. The biggest one, because child support was not made to benefit the custodial parent or the child. Child support was intended to benefit the states and reward the states for debt collection programs. It is not intended for the child or the custodial parent.
Wow.
Yep, we got the suppression blueprint here to suppress the smaller consumer reporting agencies. We have something about the repair process. We have debt collection killer pack. Remember what I told you about the new law? I did a training. So this right here has the training about the new debt collection law. This debt collection killer pack right here. We have the 24-hour inquiry deletion guide. I've used this strategy. So like I have one mentee right now that got 128 accounts deleted from his full profile. It took him 27 calls though. And this is what a lot of people don't comprehend. They'll call 1-time credit plug or 2-time, and because they didn't get somebody that's willing to help them, they give up. My man called 27 times. Can you comprehend his level of dedication? He got 128 accounts deleted. Right? So you can see, remember you spoke about bankruptcy. There's the bankruptcy bundle here, the repossession. Like an hour with you, credit plug, is not enough time, man.
Right. I understand. It's too much information.
like bankruptcy, repossession, not to mention the student loan delete. We've gotten over, to count, we've gotten over 300 student loans deleted.
And I know that's one of the huge things, especially the federal student loans, because it's I mean, it's one of the few things that from my understanding, you can't include in like a bankruptcy. So it's usually, pretty challenging to get those removed.
And here now we have the letters. So when you're going to go to dispute letters, once you go to dispute letters, it's going to bring up all the letters. And I'm like, this account deletion letter, this account deletion letter deletes any account. It doesn't matter what the account is. This one is like the go-to. If nothing works, this deletes any account, positive or negative. We have the auto loan deletion letter. We have the cease and desist. So earlier I mentioned a word, volunteer non-fit injure. To a willing person, it is not a wrong. It's a law. It's a maxim law that says to a willing person, it is not a wrong. When your LVNV funding, all those debt collection companies call you, right? And they want to take you to court. So the volunteer non-fit injure to a willing person, it is not a wrong. It means a person cannot put themselves in danger and says they are injured. So in this case, what it means is a debt collector or a debt buyer knowingly and willingly bought a pool of bad debt. You cannot cry injury and take me to court because you can't collect. You bought debts that were uncollectible. So this maxim, this law, volunteer non-fit injure, supports you, the consumer, in your defense that they cannot cry foul for buying a pool of bad debt, knowing that they might not get paid for it. What are we doing in court? Stop wasting my time. This is a powerful letter. I got the child support deletion letter. I'm telling you, man, this shit works like miracle. The variations, cause like, yo, before I go, we're gonna end on the child support. I'm gonna give y'all a peek at the child support letter. Let's end with the child support. You're gonna see why that letter is so fire. And there's so much on the website, bro. There's so much things. The identity theft bundle. There's a lot of things on here.
Wow.
It's in the letter. I make all of these letters.
And so, some of these seems like very specific to like a specific scenario, right? Like I saw you had something from like Kia Motors, things like that. So these are really sort of tailored for like specific situations that someone might encounter. So I think that's very important, because oftentimes what you would see online is just sort of these generic boilerplate sort of things where it's not really putting much context into like your specific situation, right?
This was an example I did for Capital One, requesting your truth in lending disclosure under 15 USC 1635A, the reinvestigation letter, truth in lending affidavit for a fraudulent contract. Like it's here, like they're tailored specific. The utilization deletion letter, when a negative item comes back verified, like everything is specifically tailored.
Wow.
Well, you can imagine now the language inside of them is different. And this is what people have to learn. All letters won't work for all things. They must be tailored to that to answer that question you had asked earlier. It has to be tailored now specifically to that section of the law, because each section speaks on different things.
Right. Absolutely. There's not like a one size fits all solution. No. There's no silver bullet either when it comes to remedying, your consumer reports. So that's just something people have to understand. It's not like, because something worked with someone else's situation doesn't mean it's going to work with yours. And even I've seen cases where like it might work with one reporting agency, but it may not work with another one. So there's always sort of, nuances with, the disputes. So awesome. Well, man, this was, I'm still like have a lot of stuff like circling in my head. A lot of information. Like you said, it's way too much to just cover in one session. So again, I appreciate you coming on and really, dropping a lot of knowledge for our subscribers, also myself, right? A lot of that, like I said, this isn't my wheelhouse, so to speak. So, I definitely, learned a good bit just in this session. So definitely appreciate that. Y'all make sure y'all go check out Daraine. He also has a YouTube channel as well. I've dropped the link in the description of the video, so y'all could check that out. And again, anyone looking for, dispute letters, he also has a mentorship as well. And so, any resource you're looking for, I've dropped the website in the description of the video, so y'all could definitely check that out. Again, the Credit Hero, man, definitely appreciate you blessing us with this game. Sure. This is mind blowing, man. Like I thought I knew a lot. Obviously, I did it. So this is definitely eye opening and very important. Like I said, critical information. I think we all need to be more informed consumers, right? And kind of understanding like how to empower ourselves so that, we're able to, have a clean credit record, not having, like the examples you showed earlier with like Wells Fargo doing all this fraudulent stuff. It's like, how do we fight back against some of these injustices when it comes to, our consumer report? Because at the end of the day, like I mentioned, it has a huge bearing on our way of life, whether we admit it or not. Credit is extremely important in today's society. Unless you're a billionaire and you don't use credit, it also speaks to our reputation as well. I used to work in, federal government and, getting clearances. I know a lot of times people couldn't get clearances because there was something on their consumer report, inaccurate information that, prevented them from taking on opportunities. So I think it's extremely important. So like the information that you just blessed us with is something that, everyone should be privy to. I mean, there should literally be, primary, secondary education on this type of stuff. But the way you kind of synthesize it and explain it is extremely helpful to us. And I definitely appreciate, you coming on and just dropping some bombs, right? Like straight up, just dropping a ton of great information. So yeah, no, definitely appreciate that. Again, y'all make sure y'all check out the Credit Hero YouTube link in the description, website in the description. Make sure y'all tap in. I know a lot of people are looking for sort of the do-it-yourself approach when it comes to this. And so, Daraine has a host of different solutions out there for you. And the proof is in the pudding, right? The results speak for themselves. So again, pleasure having you on. Would always welcome you to come back.
For people too.
Oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, we're doing a part two. We're definitely doing a part two. And so I like to be a man of my word. I definitely got something for your audience, and we're going to end with child support. I'm going to show you why child support is the biggest fraud ever created. So for everybody right now that rocks with the credit plug, I want you guys to text the word credit plug. So you can text it together or apart, whichever fancies your both. But text the word credit plug to 917-810-3329. That's text the word credit plug to 917-810-3329. And that will give you either 2 or 3 of my ebooks, but also my 14-day course. I'm giving you guys access to my 14-day course. The course costs $997, but I'm giving it to you guys for $47. I'm not giving it for free because I believe when people pay, they pay attention. So for everybody that wants to learn and get an introduction to it, for only $47, you will get at least 2 ebooks, 2 or 3. I can't remember how much is in there, but you will also get access to my 14-day course, a value of $997. I'm giving you guys for $47. It's because Credit Plug's my dude, and he's a very good friend of a mutual friend of ours, Jeremy. So shout out to One Deep. I see you got your One Deep on. You
Oh
got
yeah,
me.
all day, all day.
I see you representing, right?
Yes,
So shout
sir.
out to our guy Jeremy,
Shout out to the
man.
credit kingpin. Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to my guy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah, that I mean that's a huge value. $47 for a wealth of information that
yeah.
can really transform your life, if you need it. So definitely, urge you guys to check it out. All links in the description of the video. So, if y'all want to connect with Daraine and his company, you could definitely do so.
Just because of you, I'm dropping the bomb right now on child support. So all the kings and queens out there, you know that you have the power and the system. Like, I don't advocate that people don't take care of their child credit plug. That is not what I'm saying. But people have used this system and abused it. They've abused us using this child support system. So can you see the screen?
Oh, let me go back.
Let me know if you can see it.
Yep.
All right. So you should be seeing child support deletion guide, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So deleting child support, to whom it may concern, right? This notice is doing, and this letter gets sent straight to DHHS, right? Whoever puts the child support on your credit, this is who you're sending this letter to. You're not sending it to Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. So this notice is to inform you that you unlawfully reported an unauthorized account on my consumer report. I recently received communication from you attempting to collect the above listed alleged debt. Your initial communication to me in attempt to collect the alleged debt was within 30 days ago. Please be advised that I hereby dispute the validity of the alleged listed above in its entirety. Further, I request verification, validation, and proof that this alleged debt and child is mine. In addition, I want proof of a copy of a contract. See, people don't know that child support is under contract law. People don't know. You have to be enrolled in the program, right? So a contract or agreement, said contract or agreement must be with the original creditor and signed by all parties involved. You can't have a contract with one person's signature, can you? No, you cannot. You are illegally attempting to collect the above listed alleged debt and money that I do not owe. Cease and desist. Remember, we covered cease and desist in the FDCPA. So you see how it all comes together now? So now we're telling them to cease and desist all collection activity, including and reporting to the consumer reporting agencies. Promptly request deletion of any and all prior reporting made to any consumer reporting agency. If you comply with my request above within 14 days, then you are excused from verification. I have not given you written permission to put anything on my consumer report. 15 USC 1681B, permissible purpose of consumer reports in general, subject to subsection C. Any consumer reporting agency may furnish a consumer report under the following circumstances and no other. Number 2 says, in accordance with the written instructions of the consumer to whom it relates. You have no permissible purpose by law to contact third parties with my private or personal information. 15 USC 1681A4 speaks on a consumer's right to privacy. 15 USC 1692 speaks further on a consumer's right to individual privacy, right? And then I put the Privacy Act there. You have violated my rights under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, 15 USC 1681, and the FDCPA, 15 USC 1692. I will not tolerate this bullshit. This is what's in the letter. Like, I'm telling you, bro, these letters get like, come on, bro. I am a litigious consumer, and I will not hesitate to take legal action and sue you. Yes, you heard me correctly. So you see how these letters are written? You can't tell me that these letters are templates. This
right.
Me talking to you, right? So right of privacy on for advertising this alleged on my consumer report that I do not owe, and you have no lawful or legal right to collect on. Show me the agreement or the personal responsibility contract. Child support or Title 4D is contractual law, and there must be an agreement where the non-custodial parent is enrolled into the program. So this is where I start speaking their language now, right? When and where did I enroll in this program? Send me the contract bearing my endorsement, signature between whoever this is going to be, the person's name, and the head of the child support agency, DHHS. Legal duty and obligation arising from contract or of the parties or the operation of law, Riddle versus Ventling, and that's a case law. No contract, no legal duty. So this is now I am breaking down and ripping apart whatever they're going to put, because they're saying that there's an obligation, a legal obligation. Where? Show me the contract that says it. You can't produce the contract. Here's the case law that cuts that down right away, right? So no contract, no legal duty. It is unlawful to advertise any debt to coerce payment. This is under the FDCPA, right? And then there is the code that I use here for harassment or abuse. Man, I could go on and on. But I'm just going to give you a gem on the child support. I'm telling you, man, like when I sit and build these letters, like I get in a whole different zone. It's a conversation. And that's the problem. People take templates and send templates, and it's not like a conversation. I'm that I'm speaking to you.
Exactly. Like there's much more context versus just sort of the generic. And I've done videos on that in the past and how it's not effective. Because imagine 100,000 people using the same template over and over and over again. At some point it gets sort of redundant. So wow, another major gem just dropped. So again, plenty more where that came from. Y'all make sure y'all go check out Daraine's website. Make sure you go check out his YouTube channel. I mean, he's been everywhere on YouTube. I know you've been on some other big podcasts and stuff, dropping games. So again, pleasure to have you here. Make sure y'all go tap in. He has a ton of great resources, especially, I know a lot of our subscribers are in need of, restoring their consumer rapport, restoring their financial reputation. And so, a lot of what you provide definitely helps with that. So again, all links pinned in the description of the video. Y'all make sure you go like, comment, subscribe, join, check them out. Daraine, again, pleasure. And we'll definitely keep y'all posted on a part 2 or part 3, because I know there's just so much more information for us to cover. But thanks for coming on the channel, man. And dropping some major knowledge, man. So again, appreciate it.
Drop fire in the chat for the credit plug. I want to see fire in the chat for the credit plug, man. Thank you, bro. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, man. Salute.
Appreciate you, man.